Hello, my name's Emily. I'm an artist and jewellery maker and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is long awaited because I've been on a slight hiatus. Lots of stuff has been going on, but I thought I'd start a sketchbook and fill my heart with creative joy, set some intentions for this sketchbook and take you along on the journey. When it comes to sketchbooking, I often get stuck in my head in the realms of perfectionism and stop it because I'm so worried about spoiling it, especially if there's paintings in there that I'm really proud of and that I enjoy. I really struggle to kind of not want to spoil it, if that makes sense. But I thought, you know what, sketchbooking does provide me with joy. I don't have to film it all, I don't have to show it to anyone even. So I think I want to have this as just a way of creatively expressing myself when I need a bit of a distraction. If you have watched my videos before, you're probably well aware I love anything art history and love learning from the masters of art, so I thought I'd start the first page with that. And I am recreating a painting by Frank Dicksee called La Belle Dame Sans Merci, and it's The Beautiful Lady Without Mercy is the translation, and it's a painting inspired by the John Keats poem, and it's basically a poem of where a knight tells a story about how he's become obsessed with and gets abandoned by a spirit and the beautiful lady without mercy. The poem basically has themes of love, obsession and death, and or sometimes deception, and the way people kind of describe this is that so he knows that it's an illusion and yet he still cannot kind of stop this enthrallment of this lady. So that's kind of what the painting is summed by. It's inspired by the John Keats poem, so that's the summary of the painting, and so I wanted to recreate that. Art history, paintings and poetry, what more could I want? So I started off by recreating the basic shapes, 2 polychromo pencils, earth green and juniper green, and I started off with the lighter green, earth green, just to kind of get the basics sort of where I want everything to be in the composition, and then kind of consolidating that with the juniper green. I then mixed 2 acrylic inks, which was red earth and antelope brown. I thought these would be great bases because once they dry down they don't reactivate, hence the acrylic name. The Jarlarani FW inks are the ones that I'm using. I should probably have said that. I'm sorry, my brain is absolute mush. But that kind of gave the, where everything was like all chestnutty, those sort of colours. And then I went in with my watercolours, so I used a mix of, I believe, Schminke Horodam Desert Green and Roman Schmall Aquarius Green, and I think Green Appetite by Daniel Smith. These are really nice sort of granulating colours, and I thought they get the sort of foliage-esque tones within that. I do mix a bit of Scheveningen Intense Black from Old Holland in the bits that I wanted to be nice and deep, and then also maybe a bit of Perylene Green, I think, from Schminke as well. Oh, and Green Gold by May Merry Blue. But then I kind of mixed all of these together where I felt the tones needed to change. I did that, and then kind of let the water do its magic and blending all that within as well. So that gave a really nice base to then go on top of the other colours that I wanted to go on, which is the more dry media like pencils and neopastels and stuff. So this was basically just a base for me to then work onto that. The brush I'm using as well is absolutely gorgeous. It's from Artway. I got it for Christmas last year from my mother. They're like the quill-esque brushes that you can get, and these ones were a little bit more affordable than some of the ones that you can get from, say, Jackson's and whatnot. They were a set of 3. This is the final one, and I absolutely love it. Where there was elements of darkness, like where the hills sort of met, I did use the Roman Schmall Sherbush Grey, as I think with the granulation it kind of goes a little bit purpley, which works really well with that sort of, in the landscape there's a sort of mauvey tint where like the scenery goes further back. It kind of gives that perspective change, so then we can mainly focus more on what's in front of us, which is the knight and the lady. I went in with some handmade watercolours from Beyond Indigo, which I absolutely adore, and then mixed in a bit more of that black just to kind of really get those tones in of the horse. The horse is kind of like one of those beautiful chestnutty colours. I was one of those children that was absolutely obsessed with horses when I was younger, so but some of that knowledge has escaped me since. I really liked how the lady in this painting as well, her hair matched those sort of tones of the horse as well. It kind of gave that sort of illusion of continuity within the painting. There are parts of this painting that give a nod to quite a strong sunlight light source within the painting. So I wanted to add a nice nod of a golden hue within certain elements of this painting. So I used the Old Holland Scheveningen Yellow Deep just to add wherever those sort of chestnutty tones were. So there was a bit of a golden hue just to kind of imitate that really nice bright sunlight, almost sunlit from within type element of the painting, which I also think it gives a really nice ethereal feel. It kind of also adds like an element of dreamland within there. So also an extra nod to the poem and the meaning within that poem. So couldn't resist adding that as well, and there is elements of that within the painting, so I thought that was quite sweet to add. I then started to work into the background where the trees were and all the forest sort of parts within the painting. I added some hints of grey. I think it was the Sennelier Violet Grey, and then a bit more of, say, neutral tint, Sherbet Grey, and I think the Roman Schmall Shadow Violet maybe. And that gave a really sort of interesting tone. It gave it that shadow-like effect. It kind of also, I think, had that element of darkness within the poem as well, which I think, I mean, I love a bit of symbolism, so that worked quite well for that part of my brain. I then worked in parts of the dress. I think the pink gives an element of innocence and also purity within the lady, without mercy, shall we say. And so I used the Old Holland Brilliant Pink and then worked into the almost vermilion tones of the horse's saddle and almost decorative element of that as well. And I think I used the, again, Beyond Indigo Blood Orange, which granulates to almost like a really nice bright yellow within as well. And then worked in some of the Spinal Brown from Schminke, and just to kind of get those tones of the folds, because it's got a really sort of nice frill to it that I want to add at a later date. This painting was done over a span of, I think, about 3 or 4 days, in between parts where I had a bit of time in the day to be able to do this. I did, and it was very cathartic and therapeutic with what's been going on, so I really did enjoy that. I then worked into the armour of the knight, and I think I used again the same violet grey from Sennelier. I used a Sennelier grey as well, and I think it was the Daniel Smith Lunar Blue as well, to kind of get some of that granulation within, so I kind of knew where to put the tones of also the reflections and stuff as well. And then I added Sennelier Sepia as well to parts of where I wanted some depth within the horse, and it was just to really consolidate where I wanted to add certain things at a later date with pencil, crayon and stuff. By doing that, I kind of keep my brain knowing what I want to do. For the skin tone, I used a lot of titanium white because they're quite fair in complexion, and then added a hint of pinks, I think from Beyond Indigo, the Carnation, I believe, or Macaron, one of those. I just double checked, it was Macaron. I had a bit more of a lilac-y hue, which really gives that sort of fair complexion. And then I added a mix of peach haze and burnt coral for where the almost contours of the face were. Just thought I'd clarify that. It was then onto the dry media, and I used an array of Caran d'Ache luminants. I love the texture of these, they blend beautifully. So it was a really good way to kind of consolidate where I wanted all the parts of the face to highlight and not. And all the tones for these were really rich, perfect for really fair complexions. There was a bit more pink to the lady's face, which I think was done to match her dress. And then where the man was, he still looked very youthful, which I think kind of played towards the sympathy that you feel for him. He still seemed like such a young knight that I think having him still look so youthful definitely garnered a bit of sympathy for him. But then the maiden-like themes of the lady as well, I think was done almost to see why he fell for her. That sort of almost enchanting and captivating view of her, to be almost like, how can you resist her, if that makes sense. So I think it definitely, I really enjoy how they did keep to the themes of the poem. I think it worked really, really well in that respect. But then I think you can still enjoy the painting visually without even knowing the poem as well. I think it can tell its own story without the poem, but as a massive poetry nut myself, I thought I did like those actual little added bonuses that you can really appreciate when you know the poem as well. Some of the colours I really did reach for in this was, I believe, Burnt Ochre, 50%, which was a really nice terracotta shade, worked really well with the hair. I then used Hibiscus Pink, which was a really almost violet-y tone, which worked well for her complexion. Buff Titanium and Pink White as well, Carmine Lake and Raw Umber, Anthraquinoid Pink, and I think the Naples Yellow as well. I really enjoyed those within those complexion tones. Then for layering, I added a few more pencils. I used my Derwent drawing pencils in chocolate, black and light sienna. And then I worked in with the colour Soft Pink. I think it was Soft Pink, which is a really pale pink, but it blends really beautifully over the top of colours. It's relatively sheer. So if I had like a brown tone, it does kind of have that almost transparency that works really well with whatever's underneath it. And I really like that versatility of those pencils, the colour Soft from Derwent. I then worked in more of the tones, the contours of the horses. I really love really working into like the muscular elements of the horse as a bit of an OG horse lover when I was younger. I really liked the, I used a lot of horse compositions and anatomy to actually learn more about contours of drawing and things. I really enjoyed that. Even carousel horse as well. I just really like horses, what can I say? I think they're a really good subject matter if you are wanting to learn to draw, learning about contours and shadows and working with your media. They are really good subjects to really work all sorts of things, from learning how to use your media to get the desired effect that you want, to learning about anatomy, composition, and even things like proportions. I think they're really, really good, learning with the basic shapes and how they make up the more complex subject matters. If there's one thing that I tend to struggle with most of all, is more the folds and stuff of clothing, so I really want to work more on that, and this definitely sparked that sort of wanting to do better and know where my weaknesses lie in artwork. So I wanted to actually work on that, and that's kind of why I want to start this sketchbook initially, is to work on my skills so I can, you know, really be the best sort of artist that I can be, and hone in on my skills, acknowledge my weaknesses and hopefully work on them. I really adore the tones of these Caran d'Ache Luminance pencils, especially for portraits or really delicate colours. These ones are very mauvey and are just absolutely stunning, really sort of innocent and ethereal. They're absolutely gorgeous. They are a pricier pencil, but I think having the percents, like say Payne's Grey 30% up to 70%, really gives that sort of value in your artworks, from tones being from dark to light. I think it's wonderful, but also I suppose value in terms of the quality as well, because using such gorgeous supplies really does make it a really wonderful experience for you, but also to have them as even pieces for originals and whatnot. They are an absolutely gorgeous art supply to use, and I really, really do rate them. It was then time to build up the armour details, and I normally start from dark to light when it comes to things like this, like quite metallic tones. I want to really make sure that all of the main details are marked out with dark, and then I can go over it with light and really get those depths, but also the reflection as well. I really like working with metallic textures to work with that, because I think it's a really lovely way of adding different textures and reflection. I used the Faber-Castell Polychromo, I think in Coal Grey 4 or 5, just to mark out where I wanted it to be, and then I would go over then with the various Payne's Grey from the Caran d'Ache Luminance range. I did also add a couple of tones like the turquoises and blues, and even some of the greens to reflect from the foliage in the background, just to really make sure it looks like it is reflective. Obviously there's quite a golden element to the painting as well. I wanted to add that as well. So and then going in with the whites and even some gouache tones afterwards, just to get the various textures. It was then time to work in the details that were going to be the overlay of certain parts of the painting. So the leaves in the background, as though they're running through the trees in a romantic pursuit. And then I used various gouaches, from the Holbein to the Turner, the acrylic gouaches as well, so they don't reactivate with water, which I really enjoy that aspect of those gouaches. I used some really yellowy olivey tones and some more turquoisey viridian tones, and kind of mixed them with white and sand colours just to really get the tones that I wanted. used my Winsor & Newton Galleria titanium white paint and did have some more watered down aspects just to really let that kind of blend in with the rest of the background. And then once that sort of really got where I wanted it to be, I then added the white over the top in a bit more of an opaque, sort of less of a wash, shall we say, just to really capture where I wanted those reflections to be. It was kind of more for almost like trial and error, see where I want the really brighter parts to be. And then also having that, the lighter parts around it, gives it sort of like a bloom effect, which I think really adds to that luminance within the armour. So it does make it look like there is a light source that's really quite strong, which I really like. And then I also had an element of that on the saddle, which I didn't even notice until afterwards, so I really wanted to make that apparent as well. I then went in with some Posca markers just to add some more tones and vibrancy to the almost saddle decoration or adornments. So this was straw yellow in the Poscas, and I do like to use them when they're wet and mix them to other, almost more like a fluid, and then add some other colours as well. So I used like yellow ochre from Holbein and then the pastel sound from Turner, and really wanted to make sure that it was nicely sort of blended just to give a bit more of a dimension. They're quite rounded in the shape, so I wanted that to be apparent, and then use the pastel sand and a bit of white just to really add that reflection. I really liked the sort of rhythm of those because they're quite rounded and very decorative, so I wanted that to be also apparent within this painting. I used a lot of Pro Art brushes. I've really gotten into these brushes because they're such high quality, but they're not massively expensive, especially the finer, smaller shapes and sizes that I really enjoy using. I tend to, the brushes I use more frequently that I don't mind necessarily getting a bit mucky is one thing, but for really nice pieces, I really do want to start getting more higher quality items, because when I had those Artway brushes, I really realised that you really do get what you pay for when it came to nice quality tools as well. You know, as well as it's nice having nice art supplies, but also to have the tools work so well as well is really lovely and really makes the whole process even more kind of enjoyable and therapeutic. With the titanium white from Galleria, I added some final little flourishes of the painting to really get those highlights and gorgeous little final details. White highlight has always been an absolute joyful part of the painting. To me, it's the final bit. It's kind of symbolises the end of a painting. I think it's just such a satisfying part. To me, it feels like, oh, I wouldn't be adding the white unless it was a piece that I was proud of and that I wanted to complete to the highest quality. So the perfectionist in me is very satisfied when I do the white highlights. With the hands of the figures in this painting, I predominantly used the Posca markers in beige and ivory. I used them on the ceramic dish that I use with all the paint and mixed some aspects of the fluid from those pens in with some more viscous type paints, so I could really get the dimension of those hands, and then worked in with the Caran d'Ache Luminance shades that I used in the faces just to add that sort of continuity within the tones of the skin of both of those figures. I think I then took a step back. I think I had some tea and had a bit of a break from looking at that for a bit, because normally when I finish a painting I like to have a break and then see where I want to add a bit more of a prominence to, or set it further back, that sort of aspect. I don't like to finish a painting all in one go. I kind of only mark it as finished when I've had that break from looking at it, because sometimes I'm one of those that goes overboard and then wishes I hadn't. So I tend to try and have as many breaks as possible from looking at it, so I can really make sure that I'm not going too ham with something, because sometimes by staring at something for so long can change the way you see it. So had a break, came back, had another break, came back, and then when I deemed it as finished, I feel like it was the right sort of time, rather than playing too much with supplies and then sometimes ruining it. I've done that many a time. I will say that the Posca markers are great, but I think with the Art Creations sketchbooks that I use, the paper's quite smoother paper, so sometimes the texture can be a bit disrupted with like continuous use of like those sort of fibre nibs. So by using the fluid, I get the colour that I want and the material that I want, but I'm not kind of causing any trauma to the page. With it being a sketchbook, it is a thinner paper, and I want it to be as sort of looked after as possible so I can continue to use it, because the perfectionist in me does struggle with kind of continuing sketchbooks on and on and on, and I don't want that to be an aspect just because there's some disrupted texture, or I can't go over the next page because there's some tears and whatnot. I've done that quite a lot, and I don't want that. Sketchbooks are precious. Insert satisfying masking tape. Paul, these washi tapes do tend to disrupt the paper a little bit. These sketchbooks are not the most perfect texture, but I do really enjoy them. You get lots of pages and they do take wet media very well. So it's one of those, but the painting itself was not disrupted or torn, so I can't be too mad at it. But that is the finished painting. I'm so thrilled with how it came out. I'm really proud of myself because it's been a really difficult couple of weeks. I did a lot of art for myself, but then I thought, you know what, making videos is really satisfying. I don't want to go too long in this hiatus because I do find a lot of enjoyment and therapy within this community. And I thought I'd share that, you know, it's not always fantastic and wonderful, but I can make artwork in darker times, and I find it as well very healing. So I'm okay now. Things are slowly getting a little bit better. It's getting towards my favourite time of year, which I'm so excited for. I really need this festive period. I almost come alive when it comes to this time of year. I love it so much. It's also my partner's birthday this time of year, so I am well and truly ready for some much needed family time. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video or like me, please subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you here and join me on all of my arty endeavours. All art supplies I have mentioned in this video or that you've seen should be linked below with affiliate links. The affiliate links will be marked, so if you do want to support my channel without costing you any extra, that is a great way of giving back to my channel. Any links that aren't affiliate links, I will also advertise, some handmade watercolours for example, but that's the end of this video. I really hope you have a truly magical rest of your day. Please stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!